everyone. I am Ariel Pinto. I am at the UAlbanese Department of Cybersecurity, and I am here with you today to talk a bit about cybersecurity strategies, specifically for entrepreneurs. This presentation, as Simon mentioned, is brought to you by LogicalNet and by the College of Emergency Preparedness, Homeland Security, and Cybersecurity at the University at Albany. So here are the few key takeaways that you will have for today. First, think about cybersecurity as a business decision, not just an IT expense. It's really about how we allocate resources to manage risk and support our overall goals as entrepreneurs. Just like any other investment, the question isn't how much does security cost, but where does it create the most value for your business? Second, cybersecurity investment should translate into measurable business value. Strong security doesn't just protect us, it can actually enhance our products and services, reduce disruption, and strengthen customer trust. When done right, it becomes part of the value that you deliver, not just a layer of defense. And finally, it's all about balance. We need security that's strong enough to protect the organization, but not so heavy that it slows down day-to-day operation. The goal is to support the business, enable its growth, innovation, and efficiency, while still managing risk effectively. At the end of the day, the most effective cybersecurity strategies are those ones that work with your business, not against it. Let us first look at how to make smarter cybersecurity decisions. A lot of entrepreneurs start with this mindset. We're too small to be a target. The focus is usually on building the product, service, getting customers, and generating revenue, which makes sense. Because of that, cybersecurity is often pushed aside. It can feel optional or even too expensive at an early stage. And in many cases, it's only taken seriously after something goes wrong. The problem is by then, it's usually more costly and harder to fix. The reality is actually the opposite. Small businesses are often the easiest target. Attackers aren't always going after big corporations. They're looking for weak, unprotected systems. When security is limited, your vulnerability increases significantly. And it only takes one incident to cause real damage, whether that's shutting down your operation, losing customer data, or damaging trust. For a small business, that kind of hit can be very hard to recover from. So, we need to rethink cybersecurity. Instead of seeing cybersecurity as just a cost, it helps that for us to think of it as a business investment. It protects your revenue and cash flow by preventing disruptions. It keeps your customer data safe, which is critical for trust. And it supports long-term growth because you're building on a secure foundation. It also makes your business look more credible to customers, to partners, and to even investors. So why would cybersecurity matter for you? This really comes down to the practical benefits. Good security helps you avoid costly downtime and expensive recovery efforts. It allows you to build trust with your customers early on, which is a huge advantage. It also helps you meet basic compliance requirements, which can matter depending on your industry. But most importantly, it prevents setbacks that could slow down or even stop your growth. Now let's look at what smart security looks like. The good news is you don't need complicated or expensive solutions to get started. Smart security is about simple, high-impact actions. Things like using strong passwords and multi-factor authentication, backing up your data regularly, keeping your software updated, and managing access to all your data and equipment. And also, don't overlook your team. This is not all about technology. Training people to recognize scams like phishing emails can prevent a lot of issues. These may be small steps, but this can go a long way. So how can we make better decisions? As a business owner, entrepreneur, it's important to think about security in terms of risk and impact to your specific organization. Ask yourself, what data or systems would hurt the most if were lost or compromised? What could actually stop your business from operating? Then focus your investments there, your business's crown jewel. You don't need to protect everything equally. Just prioritize what matters most. And most importantly, don't wait for that breach to happen. We can also take a look at this from the perspective of startups. So for startups, security isn't just about protection, it's about growth. Investors, partners, both upstream and downstream vendors increasingly care about how you would handle security. It signals to them that you're serious and responsible about data and technology. Strong security also makes it easier for you to scale because your systems are more stable and reliable. And it helps you avoid expensive fixes later. As they would say, uh, an ounce of prevention may be worse than a pound of cure, which can be much harder once your business has grown. Now that we have an appreciation of the potential of cybersecurity to be part of an entrepreneur's growth, well, let's look at how we can turn cybersecurity into an actual business value. Instead of seeing it as just a technical necessity or a cost, we can look at cybersecurity on how it can actually create real business value. Whether entrepreneurs are running a small business, launching a startup, or scaling a company, cybersecurity can directly impact the revenue, reputation, and growth. The goal here is to understand how to make security work for your business, not against it. The old way of thinking. Traditionally, cybersecurity has been viewed as a cost center, something that you have to spend money on, but don't expect much in return. It's often treated as a technical issue, handled by IT and disconnected from the business strategy. Because of that, many businesses struggle to see a clear return on investment. So what happens? Security gets delayed, minimized, or only addressed after something goes wrong, like a breach or system failure, and at that point, the costs are usually much higher than necessary. If that's the old mindset, well, what's the new mindset? The smarter approach is to treat cybersecurity as something that creates value. First, it protects your revenue by preventing disruptions like downtime or fraud. It keeps your operation running smoothly. Second, it supports growth. As you scale up, having strong security in place makes expansion safer and more sustainable. Third, it builds trust with your customers, which we know is hard to gain and yet so easy to lose. People want to know that you care about their data and that you are keeping them safe. And finally, it strengthens your brand. A secure business is seen as more professional, reliable, credible, all contributing towards the notion of trustworthiness. So once we've seen the value for this new mindset, we all know that entrepreneurs look at things from a measurable way. So how can we measure the business value of cybersecurity? One of the biggest shifts in making cybersecurity is to make it measurable. Instead of just spending money, you start tracking outcomes like fewer incidents or less downtime or lower recovery cost after an incident. For example, if your system stays up and running, that means more consistent sales. If you avoid a breach, you avoid legal costs, fines, and customer loss. So cybersecurity isn't just theoretical. It has real, measurable financial impact. The key is to focus on the results, not just the expenses. Track the results, not just the spending. Aside from that, cybersecurity doesn't just protect your business. It actually improves the service and products that you offer. When your platform or service is secure, transactions are safer, and your system becomes more reliable. That means fewer disruptions and smoother experience for your customers. Again, that customer trust that is very valuable. From the customer's perspective, security is a part of quality. Nowadays, security is designed into many products or services in the same way as quality or reliability, maintainability, affordability. Now is cybersecurity. If they trust your system, they're more likely to use it and stick with it. In other words, security becomes part of your value proposition. Customers nowadays prefer businesses that protects their data. Let's go back to trust. Trust is one of the most valuable assets that you can build as an entrepreneur for startups and small businesses. When customers feel safe sharing their information, they're more likely to engage, purchase, come back for more business. That leads to product loyalty and repeat businesses. It also drives referrals. People will start recommending your business because they do trust you. But trust is fragile. One security incident can damage the reputation very quickly. And rebuilding trust can take a long time and can come at a significant expense. One breach can damage trust instantly. Let us have a simple example. Imagine a small online business that invests in secure payment systems and even basic data protection. As a result, they experience fewer fraud issues and fewer customer complaints. As a result, customers feel confident using the platform, which leads to more purchases, referrals, and return businesses. In this case, security isn't just preventing problems, it's actively supporting the growth and revenue, and also becomes a business differentiator. You can now be compared in a more positive way than your competitor. A case where security directly supports revenue. So now that you may be convinced that cybersecurity really do have a place in your business model, in your growth, as you scale up, as you fine-tune your value proposition, then what should you do? The good news is that you don't need a huge budget or a large IT team to get started. We can focus on simple, high-impact actions like regular data backups, keeping your systems updated with the latest patch or version, or multi-factor authentication, which used to be very expensive, but nowadays comes at a more affordable cost and even built in to off-the-shelf applications. Also, you can identify your most critical data and processes and protect those first. Not everything needs the same level of security. This is what we call risk-based cybersecurity. Think of your most precious crown jewel.
Pinto, we have a question for you.
Yes.
Jeffrey Goronkin of Urban Coworks is asking, what should we be asking our software vendors regarding their cybersecurity protocols?
All right, so that's a great question to ask if you are still trying to figure out or choosing your preferred vendors. Okay? So it would depend on the data that you and your vendor will be handling. If you would be handling, let's say, health-related information, then the first question to ask your vendor would be, well, what regulations or compliance are they abiding with? Those that would be specific for your industry. Now, with that being asked, you can get a quick summary, a benchmark of what cybersecurity posture your vendor is implementing. And it also becomes inherited, meaning if you yourself gets to be, let's say, HIPAA compliant, then your vendor also needs to be HIPAA compliant. Hence, it becomes inherited, which again strengthens your cybersecurity risk posture and something that you can broadcast to your customers. Does that answer the question?
I believe so. We have another question. Susan Bardak says she owns a really small business with only a few employees. How can she figure the biggest thing to concentrate on first when it comes to cybersecurity?
So for small businesses, it goes back to the question of what's the crown jewel? And that pertains to the answer that usually would rely on what would be that core function, product, service, procedure that you offer to your clients, which differentiates you from the competitor. And being a small enterprise, the personnel also becomes a good way to look at cybersecurity. Look at the training, the awareness, the cyber hygiene, the cybersecurity habits of the personnel, because those would also be a high yield investment, meaning providing 5-10 minutes of training for employees could come a long way with regards to preventing the most typical of cyber incidents, which would be social engineering, like phishing emails, vishing, and other form of scams.
Thank you. So for future questions, we're going to just have a Q&A session at the end. So keep typing them in, and I will pass them along to Dr. Pinto at that point. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Simon. Once you have started tracking the outcomes of your cybersecurity strategies that you have implemented, look at what risk you're reducing and how security is helping your business run more smoothly. Treat it as a part of your overall growth strategy. So at this point, let me summarize some of the key takeaways. That is, this starts from a shift in mindset, from cybersecurity as a cost center to potentially cybersecurity as a profit center, as a product or service enhancing layer into all your offerings. When you see cybersecurity in this way, it becomes much easier for you, for your investors, and for your employees to justify and prioritize cybersecurity investment. Additionally, cybersecurity is not just about defense. It's a tool for growth. It helps you protect what you have built, improve what you plan on offering, and earn the trust that you need to succeed as you scale up. If you approach it strategically, security becomes an advantage, a differentiator in the marketplace, and instead of being a burden. So the goal is simple. Grow your business as you would do so, but do it safely and smartly with security as part of your foundation. Security isn't just a protection, it's a growth tool nowadays. Now you might say, as an entrepreneur, as a small business, as a startup, there's very little bandwidth. There's very limited resources. Even though you are convinced that cybersecurity is worth looking at, exactly how would you balance any investment that you put in cybersecurity to everything else that you may already have planned or on the books? So it's a balance between cybersecurity and your operational efficiency. We may now be convinced that security is essential, but if it slows down your team or frustrates your customers, it can actually hurt growth. The goal is to find that sweet spot, that bee's knees, where protection and recovery supports your business rather than holding it back. Let us look at one of the most common trade-offs that we see out there when you are starting to implement cybersecurity. That would be the trade-off between security and speed of operation. On one hand, strong security measures like multiple logins, strict access controls, or even frequent password resets can admittedly create some friction on your team. Employees may spend more time navigating security processes instead of focusing on their core work. On the other hand, prioritizing speed and operational efficiency without notion of security may expose your business to unnecessary risk. And this is something we mentioned earlier. Hackers and scammers often target business that move fast but lack the protection that should come with it. This tension is particularly acute for small businesses and startups because of the resources that are limited. And so that right balance, where security protects your asset without slowing down your day-to-day operation, is really critical. So what exactly does balance mean? So balance doesn't mean cutting corners. Okay? We do not really need to sacrifice some of the core value that you would like to offer to your customers just so that we can have better cybersecurity. Or we do not really need to overcomplicate things. It's about applying security strategically. Enough security to reduce real risk. It goes back to focusing on protecting data, systems, and process that matters most, our crown jewel. For example, this could be your customer payment data or key internal documents. Simple processes that do not slow down work unnecessarily. Security can feel seamless to employees and customers if done appropriately. Think of background processes that can kick in when a business is slow or during the overnight hours, and smart tools rather than unnecessary steps. You can also think of how to fit the protection to your business size and needs. Startup and small businesses have different risk profile than large enterprises. The goal is not perfection. We're not going for 100% security, but rather appropriate practical protection that would allow you to operate efficiently and reduce the chance of serious incidents. But admittedly, if applied not in a smart way, security may hurt business. If you create overly complicated system, then your employees may struggle just to do their jobs. Multiple logins, too frequent password resets. Customers can feel it too. Security should protect your business, not just create unnecessary obstacles. This goes back to the appropriate cybersecurity strategies. So when is security too weak? This last few slides are really meant to help you fine-tune on that balance between too much and too weak cybersecurity, depending on your business, your size, and what are your strategic goals at this point. Weak security carries its own dangers. Cyber attacks, as all of us now know, are increasingly common. And hackers often target the small businesses because they assume defenses are weak. But it doesn't have to be. Even one breach can lead to loss of critical data, downtime that halts operation, damage to that valuable customer trust that may take months or years to rebuild. And for small businesses and startups, this impact can be catastrophic. That's why ignoring security is just as risky as overcomplicating it, which brings us to that notion of balance. So as you try to search for that sweet spot, that balance that would be appropriate for your needs, for the size of your company, what would it look like? So ask yourself, is what you're doing practical and efficient? For example, multi-factor authentication adds to a strong layer of protection, but can be implemented in a way that doesn't slow down your employees unnecessarily. Automatic software updates ensure your systems are patched, and if done at the right hours of the day, it would require minimal effort and minimal disruption. As you also scale up, increase the footprint of your company, and increase your personnel, you may also look at role-based access controls, meaning which of your personnel needs which part of your system and what specific data do they need for their role. Restricting this access control, especially for sensitive information, only to those who need it without inconveniencing everybody else. Many security tools operate in the background. They might be in the background so that they silently protect your business while your team can still continue working normally. The key takeaway here is that effective security doesn't always have to be intrusive or even visible. It just has to work. Let's have a simple real-world example. So let us say startup A, we have here two startups. Startup A implemented strict security measures, which may mean frequent password changes, multiple approval steps for every actions, and restrictions on many access to data and processes. That may result to employees spending more time navigating security than doing their work. Productivity may suffer, and the company may struggle to scale unnecessarily. An option, let's say startup B, focuses on this balanced security. That this may mean implementing multi-factor authentication, more strict to those who handle uh, more important data. They do automatic updates on their platforms during the slow periods of the workday, and also look at what are the roles of each personnel and design their access based on those roles. This may be a big difference on how employees could work efficiently and still maintain the same system protection as with Startup A, which would allow Startup B to grow their business more steadily and with less disruption than Startup A. This example shows that balance is not theoretical, that it directly impacts growth and operation. So to find that balance, your balance, these are some of the questions that you would need to ask. First would be, what systems are critical to your daily operations? These would be considered as your business's crown jewels that need your immediate attention. Things like your website, payment platforms, emails, customer management systems. If any of these stops working, how long could your business function? So this system should be your top priority for security and reliability. Next question would be, what would disrupt your business most? Start by thinking about worst case scenarios. What could actually stop your business from operating totally? Is it your website going down? Or is it losing access to customer data? Or a payment system failure? This again brings up that focus on protecting against events that would hurt your revenue and operations the most. This will then lead you to having an idea of what are your biggest risks. Think about where and why you're most vulnerable. Are you storing sensitive customer data? Are you handing over those sensitive customer data to your vendors? Are you handling payments? Are you relying on remote access, essentially increasing the ways that hackers can get your data? And depending on your industry, Are you in compliance to regulations? Understanding your biggest risk helps you avoid spreading your effort too thin. Instead, focus on where it matters most. Next would be, well, now that you know your crown jewel, now that you know uh, what are the worst case scenarios, then what are your options to prevent, protect, and recover? You may have heard of the word resilience. This is exactly that. It's like having a spare tire in your car. You could only do so much to prevent a flat tire, but eventually you'll get one or two in a lifetime or in a year. It now becomes a question of, well, once you get a flat tire, what can you do to get up and running as fast as you can? So security isn't just about prevention. It's also about protection and recovery. Prevention would be stopping attack before they happen. These are what we often hear: virus scan, patching, multi-factor authentication. Then there would be protection. That is, if something starts to happen, if an incident starts happening, how can we limit the damage when that uh, during that scenario? And this could be in the form of network segmentation, which meant that your data can be separated in such a way that access or unauthorized access to some of the data doesn't mean the entirety of your data. Or access control. If some of your employees or personnel falls for a phishing scam, it doesn't mean your entire system gets to be affected. And finally, recovery. Getting back up and running quickly. This might be in the form of data backups, alternative procedures, and other recovery strategies. Um, a specific example, having backups of your data don't prevent attacks, but they help you recover fast, which is as important. Next would be, where can you simplify? Look for ways to reduce complexity. Security should not slow your team down or frustrate customers unnecessarily. You can look at tools and processes that are easier to manage, gives you the same effectiveness and efficiency, and more agile in terms of changing cybersecurity landscape, like single sign-ons or automated updates or streamlining access controls. The simpler your system, the more likely your employees will follow any rules that you may impose. And that actually improves security. So by asking these questions, you can focus on what truly matters, protecting your business in a way that keeps it running smoothly and growing confidently. But at the same time, being prepared when something indeed happened. That is quicker recovery. So let me now kind of summarize the gist of this webinar. That is, you don't need perfect security because they can be very expensive. At this point, you need the right security for your footprint and for your business goals. Focus on what matters most and simplify wherever possible. Some of the uh, buzz that you've heard from me earlier would be, security should enable growth. Not too weak, not too restrictive, just right for your business. The goal is that security should help your business grow, not hold it back. And that's where that balance comes in. because when done right, it becomes an advantage, a competitive advantage, a value adding capability, not an obstacle. So to wrap up for entrepreneurs, your business can be both secure and efficient. With the right approach, you don't have to choose between safety and growth. You can have both. And so this will be the time wherein if you have questions, I'll be happy to respond to them.
Dr. Pinto, thank you so much for this presentation. We really appreciate it. I hope you guys, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
perfect.
you.
Yes. You know, listen, we can't talk enough about cybersecurity, and I think this is the first part of the 4-part series this year. I'm sure you guys, everyone has some questions, or some people have some questions on it, but security and convenience sometimes don't go hand in hand. But you're absolutely correct. Security should enable growth, and we should take it seriously because the sophistication of threat actors now is so sophisticated. It's crazy. And if everyone saw what we see as a managed service and managed IT service provider, I think everyone would agree that security is a top priority, and it should be a priority for every business owner to take it seriously. And this is not just, hey, my IT guy's handling it. I think owners need to be more involved with this. So with that said, thank you so much, Dr. Pinto, for bringing this awareness, and we'll continue to talk more about it. And just when we thought we talked enough about security, we're going to keep talking because it is so important, especially in today's day and age.
Thank you, Tush. So I'm going to ferry along those questions people were so kindly putting in the chat. The first one is from Dan O'Sullivan. He's asking, are the more senior cybersecurity students at UAlbany a good option for jumpstarting a cybersecurity strategy within a small business? Or would a lower level student like a part-timer or a summer internship be sufficient for that?
So here at our program, we have two degrees, the Bachelor of Science and the Master's program in Cybersecurity. Even those that are in their sophomore, junior, they don't have to be senior, are already drilled into the basic of cybersecurity. Not yet the technical, but more of what we would call a cyber hygiene, that they already know the importance of password management, access control, multi-factor authentication, even if not yet the technology behind all of those implementations. And so for small businesses and startups, wherein it's important to just build the culture, our students would already be capable, even at their early age. With regards now to technology enhancement, if you already have, let's say, access control in your organization, but you want to strengthen it, then the more mature senior and even master student will now be able to fine-tune the system you have just for your needs.
Thank you. I also wanted to put in that once you get rolling, LogicalNet can very much consult with or even help with that. So feel free to give us a buzz. Jeffrey Goronkin was asking, how do we get other people in our organization who might not fully understand technical risks to take cybersecurity threats more seriously?
This has always been a pain point when it comes to entrepreneurs and leaders, is how to bridge that experiential versus the technical aspect of cybersecurity. So on the people side, what we have learned to be more effective is to relay it back to what they do, to their role. So let's say someone who is in marketing may not really be involved in technology, okay, and yet interfacing with the public. Then For them, what might be relevant would be training for phishing, against phishing email, against falling for social engineering. While let's say we have programmers, okay, that for them, what might be more important would be, let's say, auto updates, that it will reduce their effort in debugging and large-scale updating, which again increases the company's or your organization's cybersecurity profile, and at the same time help your employees in their work or role.
Thank you. So Susan Bardak is asking, to educate employees, are there online programs that are good for this? And are there any you'd recommend in particular?
All right, so there are several online programs, and programs comes in many ways. It could be an interactive, Q&A. Click on the choose, and it will bring you to the next level once you've done. It's almost an automated training. To as simple as a simple infographics, which tells you the 10 cardinal rules to start your day. So it comes in many ways, and I can definitely provide recommendation offline. I can pass it on to Susan or to you, Simon, and we can share it later on with the audience.
That's actually a really good question. Dr. Pinto, I'd like to talk to you about this later, so I can just provide this this information in the follow-up emails that everyone will get, because I think Susan was the one who's curious, but I think anyone can use that. Our own Mike O'Mara was asking, can you talk about process and strategies for data inventory and identifying critical data in your organization? So what data is the most important to protect is my read on that.
Right. So the importance part comes in several perspectives. First of all would be rules and regulation. What does the rules and regulation that applies to your business would require you to protect? Let's say you are in education, then FERPA. If you are in health information, then it's HIPAA. And that would be different if you're in financial. Okay, so that would be one direction to look at data inventory. Another would be the process. Goes back to the crown jewel question. Right? So what would be the data that weigh heaviest on the trust that you try to protect with your customers? Most likely, it's going to be their PII, personally identifiable information, which includes social security, addresses, bank accounts, if you're doing payment processing. So those are all bear their weight both on compliance and also on your day-to-day operation.
Thank you. Malani Krishna was asking, how can we evaluate cybersecurity of third-party platforms like our website or CRM or bookkeeping software? So I'm hearing SaaS tools, that sort of thing. How do you evaluate their cybersecurity? Because if they're not secure, you're not.
Right, exactly. So most likely, if these are fairly established entities, then they would already have some glosses, some web page, or even if you ask your point of contact, simple as what's your cybersecurity posture, they should have a straight up answer to you or give you a document that tells you what are their policies and regulations. If they cannot answer you, that's a big sign that, okay, maybe they need a bit more clarity on how they protect your data. But the usual words that hopefully you'll get to expect would be, first, encryption. Okay. Second would be training. Are they encrypting the data coming in and out of their company? Are they providing trainings to their employees? Are they in compliance with any of the regulations, federal, state, or industry that applies to your domain? So those are the typical responses that hopefully you get to hear from them.